Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this video which is going to talk you through your global development assessment and give you time to have a bit of reflection on the work that you've done, be able to review it, and to also to be able to scaffold and show you some good answers and what you need to be doing to try and get those better marks for you all. The reason that I've pre-recorded this is so that you can watch this, record it and compare it to your answers. So it would be a really good idea if you can see your answers on Firefly as you're watching this video. I'd also recommend that you do make notes in your book about the questions, the answers, and compare the answers that you see on the screen and the comments I've made to your answers. What could you have done now you've seen the answers and a sample of a good answer? What could you do to improve yours? But also give you a chance to see what mistakes you've made and what you need to avoid doing in the future. So feel free to pause and rewind this video at any time that you need. So this question was really straightforward, and because the question says name one indicator, that's all you needed to do. You didn't need to describe it or explain it, but it does require you to have a knowledge of the key terms and what is involved with some of these different definitions of development. So this was asking you specifically for the Human Development Index. And as you'll know from the lessons, we made sure that you were aware that there are a number of key features that you can have because this is very specific. So you could have had, for example, the expected years of schooling or the mean years of education. It could have been life expectancy or the gross national income. Now you had to be very specific with each of these because these form part of a calculation to measure the Human Development Index. Therefore, because this one, gross national income per capita, was fully correct, they got 1 mark. But notice they did not accept literacy rates or gross domestic product, so you had to have the specific information in there. Now this question, most of you got this correct because it was just using the information in front of you on the map. And it said study figure 2A. Whenever you see that word study, then you must make sure that you look at the resource that you've been given. And it says identify one country labelled on figure 2A with a medium HDI. So you're looking for a country which is this colour here. Now as you can see, you've got 4 choices. USA. USA is a dark blue, so it's not that one. India, yeah, it's one of the lighter blues. It could be that one. Madagascar, no, that's far too light. And Brazil, again, would be too dark. So that way it has to be India. So you can easily gain marks. Everybody should be gaining a mark for this. Now the next question wasn't so well answered. And the reason for this is you didn't read the question carefully. Identify the country, continent on figure 2A that has the highest number of countries. Now this requires you to have a bit of understanding about the geography of different continents. Now if you look at this, you might think, oh, North America, which many of you did. But actually, how many countries make up North America? Well, here we can see you've only got USA and Canada. That's only 2. Whereas Europe, which is dark blue, holds over 20 countries in that zone, which have got a very high HDI. So the answer would have been Europe. So read the question carefully. This was another one where you needed to read the question. It says, state 2 disadvantages, bad points, of the method of presentation. It wasn't asking you about how the data was collected or what the data was showing you. It was just saying, why might it be difficult to read? Now you can see here that the command word is state, so you don't need to explain it. You don't need to describe it. You just need to state 2 of them. And you can see here we have the possible answers that you could have been given. So here The person has written it doesn't give precise numbers for the HDI, just a range. Yep, that's fine. It doesn't give you that detail, and it can be hard to tell the colour because they're all similar. So that would have been perfect. 2 marks. Didn't need any more detail than that. So another answer which most of you did well, but again, it's about reading the question. The command word is state. It just needs one basic point. You don't need to describe it or explain it. But it was one physical factor that has led to variations in the development across the UK. So because it's physical, it's a natural factor. So it could be, as we've got here, different relief, that it's steeper in the north. You don't need to explain it. You just state it. And you can see we have a whole range of the different answers you could have given down here. But again, this is where knowing the key terms and how they link is critical, so you can give the correct answer, as well as reading the command word and the focus and restriction of the question. Now, you will find that on the GCSE exam papers, around between 10 and 20% of the answers are based on resources. They've actually given you the answers there. It's just your job to read the information carefully. So here, the question is study figure 2b, so make sure you're looking at figure 2b. Read the title of it. What is it showing you? And it said, identify the 2 countries with the highest GDP per capita. So you're looking for which of these countries show the 2 highest. Now, because it's giving you a selection, you need to choose through those. So just go through it and look. Morocco and Kenya. Well, we can see Morocco is only 2,000 and Kenya is 1,300. Well, they're definitely not the highest. And we can just work through it in that way till we get the correct answer, which should have been France and Qatar. Qatar at 74,000 and France at 36. You also have the option of Qatar and Spain, but Spain is only 25,000. So that one would have been wrong. The next one, let's use your understanding of other subjects. Calculate the median GDP. Now, this is where you've got to rely on your maths. Remember, we can have the mean, the median, or the mode. And these terms apply to geography as well. So the median would be the middle number if you ranked all of these in order. Well, there are 9 different countries, so you would go and pick the one that is in the middle, or the 5th number in the ranking. And in this case, it was Hungary. But remember, some of you wrote Hungary instead of the value. It says calculate the mean GDP. It doesn't say which country has the mean GDP. So make sure you read the question and give the correct information. But again, 2 simple marks there that you should have got. So if we look back on those previous questions, there were 8 marks in total there. And they were all pretty simple and straightforward, either relying on a resource or just simple answers. Your aim has to be getting all of those correct. If you work out 8 out of 27, then we're looking at around the 27-28% mark already just from the simple answers. So let's have a look at this one. Now this one, it says explain. We need to extend our answers to the question. So we make a point and then we use connectives. This means that, such as, this leads to, this causes, and make sure we have those connectives. We're trying to answer because, also, this shows, because that is how we explain. And it says 2 reasons. A number of you just gave 1 reason. And why is it GDP per capita, equivalent to average wage, is lower in the periphery of different regions of a country? Well, think about, what do you know about the periphery, and why does that mean that the average wage would be lower? So it might be, as we can see in this answer here, It's a really simple one. It's often lower because most people work in the primary sector. Now this would be the point. Although they've used the word because, they've not explained it, they've just made the point. So that would be worth 1 mark there. Then they've got a bit more information, which, to be honest, isn't needed, but it does add to the answer. But then by saying this means that the total value of goods is less in periphery region other than the core region. So although there's a little bit of a typo there, it's gone on to extend the answer because the total value of goods is less. Another one here is it could be because the unemployment level is higher. This results in, so again, look at the connectives that are being used to show that they are giving reasons and explaining their answers. And if we look below, we can see a whole range of other answers that you could have given. And notice the marks here. So you don't need to be writing lots and lots, but you've got clear points. And notice these connectives: due, which makes, which will, due to, which limit. So when you've got an explain question, make sure you're using those connectives. Now we have another question that's based on a resource. So it says changes in population structure over the last 30 years have influenced the development of developing and emerging countries. Study figure 2C below. Now, the moment that you see this, you'll notice there are some bits missing from here. Now, this is probably because you will need to add in some information. Now, in the actual exam that this was taken from, you would have got 2 marks for putting this information correctly into the graph. But obviously, we can't do that on Firefly. But it would have been quite simple with a ruler just to mark it on here, then 5%, and obviously you'd use a ruler rather than trying to do it freehand on a graphics tablet, which doesn't work very well, and then 2.5%, and so you could just draw it on. You would get 2 marks for that. Dead simple. If you mix it with those other 8 simple marks, that's 10 marks, which would have then been out of 29. 30% already from simple stuff. And you then get another mark for identifying the percentage, total percentage of 5 to 9 year olds in 1986. Well, for 5 to 9, you have to add the male to the female. It's simple. So 5 to 9, we can see we've got 7.5% there. We've got 7.5% there, which gives us 15%. Everybody should have been getting that right. The next question was a state question again. So state, don't need an explanation. Just give the points. State 2 possible reasons for the decrease in the 0 to 4 age group shown. Now, some people have said, oh, people didn't want females because they'd not looked at this information here, thinking that no females were born there. So that was a bit of a trick because you weren't asked to fill this in, but we need to use our common sense a little bit. Now, what we've got to do is think about what are the reasons for these reducing numbers based on what we've studied with India. And as we can see here, we've got education about birth and family control, and life expectancy increased, so they don't need to have as many children. Now, just the bits underlined would have got the 2 marks. They didn't need this extra bit because the command word was state, so it could have just been kept really simple. So have a look at your answer. How does it compare? And don't forget to keep pausing this video when you go through it. Now, obviously, there's lots of other reasons for it as well, but do they link up to the notes you have in your book? So as we get later on into the exam questions, they start to get harder. And this is where those of you aiming for the 7s, 8s and 9s need to make sure you're performing well. You should be making sure you're getting virtually all of the easy questions and then it's how you extend your answers here to really push on to those higher grades. So the question, explain. When we say explain, what do we need? We need connectives in there. What were the connectives that I mentioned earlier? And then it is 2 ways which geopolitical relationships have affected the development in either a named developing or emerging country. Now it's worth 4 marks here, so you need to be thinking, well, I've got to explain 2 different ways, each way will be worth 2 marks, and make sure that you are explaining it. But look at what you've got to do. A named country. If it says a named country, then this is brilliant because the person here has said country, India. If they hadn't have done this and not have mentioned the word India in their answer, they would have been only got 2 marks if no named country is used. Okay, so it's important that you follow all of the instructions carefully. Now again, this is where knowing your key terms is very important. Geopolitical basically means relationships with other countries. It does not mean periphery and core, and this is why knowing your key terms is so vital. So let's have a look at the answer they've got. They have affected India, so we've got the name country, because India has disputes over land with surrounding countries. There is your point. This slows the development of the country, so they're linking it to this idea of how it's affected the development because they spend money on these disputes. So because becomes the connective there, and it's linking it to the question. They've said what the geopolitical relationship is and why and how it's affected development. So this bit would be worth 2 marks. Another way this affects India is that it decreases quality of life as people are involved in war, often suffer from physical and emotional scars. Now this, you'll see, doesn't actually appear here, but we know that the social aspect of countries is also important in terms of development. And in the mark schemes, it will always say accept any other valid answer. So, because it's linked it to quality of life and development, then it felt that this could also be awarded 2 marks. But it also helped that the first part was so strong. But have a look at the answers you've got down here to see what else you could have had. We're now going to have a look at the 8 marker. Now, you haven't done one like this before, and this is why I asked you to watch the walking talking mock, because that would have spoken and talked to you about how you lay it out and the kind of information you need. And it was obvious those who'd watched and made notes on the walking talking mock did significantly better than those who didn't. Now, when it comes to marking these, it's important to recognise that they are not marked like the others, which have points where you can see them clearly, but we read the whole of the answer and then we award different levels to it. Now, level 1 is where you've got some points in there, some bits of information that are kind of relevant, but they don't really answer the question, and they don't include any evidence, and they don't make any judgments. It's just you've stated some facts, some of them which are correct. For level 2, now you've got between 4 and 6 marks. At the top end, what you're seeing is you've given the correct information and you started to explain it linked to the answer. Now, if you're aiming for grade 8 or 9, then you want to be doing really well in all the other questions and getting at least a 6 on here. And that will ensure you, as long as you don't make any mistakes elsewhere, that you'll be hitting the 8s and 9s. So, you need to have the correct information, you need to explain it and link it to the question. To get to the level 3, it's doing what level 2 does, relevant information, clearly explained and clearly linked back to the question, but also has evidence in there and has also made a coherent judgment. So you've addressed the command word. Here it says assess. Now assess means which is the most important bits of it. Now we're going to have a look at some answers on the next slides and talk you through those. So what I'm going to ask you to do is read through this in a moment and pause the video. And what you can do is look out for the key elements. Yeah. Have they assessed? Have they started to say which is important? Have they given a judgment or conclusion? Have they given positive and negative impacts? Have they talked about rapid development? And have they mentioned a named developing or emerging country? So pause the video and have a read through now. Okay, so let's have a look. Well, straight away we've got the country India in there. So that's really, really positive. Now they've started off with an introduction. What they've done is it said it can have positive and negative impacts on India, and it started to give examples. Now you don't need an introduction, but this is really good because it sets your answer up well. Now here, a positive impact, showing that it's linking to the question, is that the country's economy has grown and they now have more money to spend on developing the country further. They've then gone on to extend that. For example, they can spend money on improving healthcare, and they've extended it even further, which will increase life expectancy. They've then gone to talk about infrastructure to allow for easier trade and travel across the country for jobs and for school. So they've given a positive impact, more money, and they've said why that's such a good thing. They then go on to develop further. Another positive impact is it can increase in international trade links. And it goes on to give a reason for that. Now, if we look at the next part, they do the same. So they've clearly separated the questions. They've got positive factors. They've got negative factors. They've linked it to rapid development. And they've also given some examples and explanations in there. Now, finally, they've made a judgment. In conclusion, the positive impacts of rapid development outweigh the negatives, and they've given a reason for their opinion there. So they've given a judgment. So if we look at that, what do we think we awarded? Well, this was awarded a top of level 2, 6 marks. The reason that it didn't get any more than that is because it didn't give any specific examples or locations within India. Had it done so, then that would have got sort of 7 or 8 marks. So again, I'd like you to read through this video, and I'm not going to talk it through now, but just have a look. Can you see some of the good points, the strengths of this? And then think about what level or what grade you would mark this at. So pause the video now. So what has it got? Well, it's mentioned the country India. So we've already done that for the name developing country. Again, it's got a bit of background. There are large levels of uneven development and there are positives and negatives to this. So it's setting the scene. And again, it goes on to talk about positive impacts about it. And it's gone on to extend those. But here it's also given locations. It goes on to explain, and it also splits up into social and economic. So it goes into a slightly greater amount of detail. Again, it does a disadvantage. And it also gives a location, and it shows through some of the wording that they've used that they know about that location. Therefore, it has got that little bit more. And again, they've given the judgment at the end of it. And just because it's got this little bit more information in, this would push this into a level 3, around 7 marks. And the final one. Just have a read through this one, and what do you think? So pause now. So what did you think? Now, it has mentioned the country, and it is talking about positive and negative impacts. But if you look at these aren't really explained. These are more listed. Some of the social impacts would be the increase in sanitation, hygiene, increase in quality of healthcare, and it has given social and economic impacts. But there is no judgment in this, and there is no case study information. But it is linked. So this is what a low level 2 answer would look like. It's got balance, it's got correct information, and although it's not explained, it is related to the question. So would gain this probably a low level 2 of 4 marks. So you've seen a whole range of questions now. Remember, you can go and watch this video again as many times as you want, but compare these to your own answers. Make a note on what you could do better next time. For example, not messing up on the simple answers. And what could you do in the more complex questions to make sure you're getting higher marks? Well, I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. See you soon.